Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to my channel. A card which has kind of taken the TCG by storm in the last couple of weeks has been Charizard EX since its release over in Obsidian Flames. But what exactly is the best way to play Charizard? It is actually surprisingly done incredibly well by getting out of the 2 out of 3 tournaments, getting a top 8 placement or better. So Charizard EX is doing really well, and every version that's placed high is completely different from another. So right now I'm going to break down exactly what is the best way to play Charizard EX, how is its position right now in the meta, and what exactly is the future for Charizard to keep succeeding as the format continues to develop. So over in the Barcelona ESP, it actually got 10% of the meta both day 1 and day 2. So a lot of people have kind of clocked on the Charizard EX. It's not exactly just a meme deck which you take to cups and challenges. Pokemon is always going to print Charizard EX cards, and this potentially could be the most competitive one yet. The amazing ability to search your deck for up to 3 fire energies, attach them to your Pokemon as many as you like, without burning darts doing 180 damage and 30 more for each prize card your opponent's taken. Really punishing your opponent in the late game by doing over 300 damage, which is honestly incredible amount of range that Charizard EX can in fact get. Like I mentioned, 2 top 8 placements or higher at large events. The one in the Yokohama Champions League and obviously just in the Barcelona ESP. Heck, even in Pittsburgh, it managed to get a top 64 placement. So Charizard EX is definitely known to take the competition by storm and do incredibly well. Like I mentioned, what exactly really is the selling point? Well, high HP and damage output. It can do over 300 damage and have the HP of 330. Really difficult for most Pokemon to get a big one-hit KO on it. A lot of decks kind of go to that magic 300, 310 because of Gardevoir and Mew. Getting that 330 is a lot more difficult. Some Pokemon really work into getting that huge amount of damage output that really is required. So that's why Charizard X has got a lot of success. It hits very relevant weaknesses by hitting weakness on the likes of Gardevoir and Mew VMAX, which is really powerful because it's very much difficult for them to respond KO. And having a grass weakness is super good. There's no real powerful grass decks right now. The likes of people try Shaman, Superior, heck, even Tropius in Lost Box to try and get an Excelgor Mew to try and get those big one-hit KOs back on Charizard EX. But all of them kind of failed and kind of flopped to the ground. It has amazing good range to support Pokemon. Like I mentioned, all the high placement decks are completely different versions. We've got a Lost Box version, we've got a Gallade version, we've got an Arceus version. So every single one of them has a completely different strategy about how Charizard EX works. So that's really kind of the talking point exactly. Charizard EX is like Xian Pao. It's not exactly a refined sort of version, but it's doing incredibly well the past 2 weekends. So what I want to do now is break down exactly the list, how they all work, and kind of the strategies around it, and why you might potentially play different versions. So for Lost Box Charizard EX or Extreme Sablezard has did really well by getting top 4 in the Barcelona ESP. Did incredibly well here because it had so much HP, which is really difficult for loads of Pokemon to actually get those big one-hit KOs onto it. And it kind of is very similar to why you normally play your Lost Box or versions. Use your confidence in the early game, trying to get your board state as quick as possible with the likes of Chorus Experiment and the multiple switching cards. Start attacking with Cramorant, and then while your opponent's taking a couple prizes, Charizard EX can really be there to do that clean sweep, while Sableye can really slow down with likes of his low HP basics and to really clean up with his extra damage in the late game. Really powerful archetype. And why is this good? Well, not many archetypes can really hit that 330 damage really early on. So you can have this Charizard quite the setting up, getting this accelerating up over with your Charizard EXs, and then go into some attacks. You can really use it utilizing the likes of Radiant Greninja, having that switching out with playing attaching the energies to your Pokemon to use that for retreating. It is really powerful, and I really love how this version is kind of built around it. You have multiple different ways where you would see some of the likes of Charizard X not playing that disruptive capability. Only one could be a Roxanne, but I do like the Raihan because that works not only with Charizard X, but also with Sableye and even Radiant Greninja. Radiant Greninja could be set up even quicker now for Mirage Step, Radiant Raihan, and even the Charizard EX. So multiple different ways to energy accelerate to those of your Pokemon. I really love how this deck works here. Mirage Skate is pretty much only used for Radiant Greninja because, like I mentioned, Charizard X has its own inbuilt energy acceleration. I think this is a really powerful version about where Lost Zone decks can really work around it. It really helps in your Mew matchup. You can have Sableye to kind of go attack the likes of these Mew on the bench, as well as obviously the likes of Meloetas, Orcorios and Genesects, and also Charizard can really help finish over those Mew VMAXs. I'm a huge fan of how this deck works. I think it has really positive matchups around the board. I would say your Xian Pao is pretty powerful with the likes of Sableye, who's really strong in the early game. Against the likes of the Frigibasses, I would say it's also really good in these Arceus decks because, again, you're playing loads of a little bit small HP basics, but also this big, huge Charizard, which can never really be one-hit KO'd very easily. It's there's so many different versions about why I think this deck is really going for it. This could potentially be the best of archetype. It did see a lot of success in the online sort of scene. It did really well in some tournaments, and people really kind of like took around it. And I love to see that it did have a huge finishing placement. The other one is obviously in the Yokohama Champions League. Very, very different archetype to what I was expecting, the Zard Gallade. And having the Curlier engine as your draw factor really makes so much sense. Just purely focusing on Charizard EX as your attacking option and having Iono to be that really disruptive capability, and that Curlier to not rely on likes of Bibarel or any of the likes of Pidgeot and Mew EX, which could potentially be a very big liability to the likes of Path to Peak. Curlier can really help against those sort of options by discarding any of these useless cards you might not need, like likes of Battle Fair P-Bars, heck, even Rare Candies and Ultra Balls, or even like supporters you might potentially not need right now in the game, can really draw into the cards you might potentially need. I really like how this version works here. Again, you're playing the 70 HP Charmander and also one of the 60 HP one here, purely having a 1 energy attacker. But having the Gallade is really, really good, because Gallade gets you any of your support Pokemon you might get. Getting that support, getting that boss's orders, getting that Iono, constantly disrupting your opponent, constantly getting the boss's orders for late game. The power pad is really, really key in this sort of deck here. And one reversal energy, so you can just use that 160 damage on this Swirling Slice Gallade and then move it to your other Gallade. I think it's a really, really interesting version of how this deck works. I think you definitely have some really good matchups in the likes of, you have a really good single price attacker, the likes of Gallade, which has 1-hit KOs on the likes of Excalibur, the likes of all of the Lost Box or deck cards, as well as also the likes of Bibarel and anything like that, any draw sort of faction there, and Gardevoir. Really, really powerful card in that sort of way here. And then Charizard with those big 1-hit KOs in the late game. I think it's a really interesting and unique approach to how Charizard is kind of constructed. It's done very well in the online scheme by getting quite a few top 8 placements and sometimes even a couple wins with its Gallade version. I've also seen it using quite a few cups, no really in the special sort of events here, but generally this is a really unique approach for Charizard EX and potentially could be a really good way around that Path to the Peaks archetype. But the one we're most common with is Arceus, which is in fact get a top 64 placement over in Pittsburgh. So these are, as far as I'm aware, some of the most placing archetypes in these regionals. So Arceus exactly focuses purely on the fact where you use Charizard in the early game and really energy accelerate to Arceus, use that as your attacking option, search your deck to select like so your Pidgeot, so you get any of your cards you might potentially need. Bibarel, so you're under Iono, you can constantly attack him. And your Fatality Ban is a really good attacking option, like the Charizard to easily get to those big 1-hit KOs very quicker. Choice Bar as well for like Arceus to get to that big, lovely either that 230 or 220 HPM, depending on what energy you have attached to it. Magma Basin, so you can attach to a Radiant Charizard, and loads of other cards as well, like Jax to get all of your evolved Pokemon. This is the kind of build which we expect a Charizard to be. The build I've played against in regionals, sorry, not regionals, in cups, that you are expected to play against in regionals. So honestly, seeing this version here not perform as well, but the other ones that are much stronger, is a really unique way to approach it. This feels like I mentioned before in my other videos and stuff like that. It feels very much like where Xianpao is right now in the meta. There are so many different versions of play Xianpao. We're trying to find the right version, the refined version of this list here. The Arceus obviously is really good. It has very good matchups in the likes of Gardevoir and Mew EX, because you have an Arceus with a huge amount of HP, which they can't really go through it very, very easily without just going through multiple ones of any of their damage modifiers. But you are incredibly weak to Path to Peak in this build here, by nearly every single one of your Pokemon to use to attack relies on abilities. So kind of like a little bit of a closing thoughts on this sort of archetypes here. Will the success really continue with Charizard? Is this a one-hit pony, one-hit wonder, not really going to do incredibly well in the rest of the format? I generally think as the meta evolves and the deck gets more refined, it will become better. The best version will come out on top. Now, obviously, the best placement is the Lost Zone version. Then you could say the Gallade was such a huge surprise or archetype here. Maybe that might do well, or people might just go back to the basics of Arceus. But with Arceus' success not being as strong as the other two, people might be ditching the Pidgeots, ditching the Arceus, and going to these other really powerful attacking options by having an amazing better support option which goes around the likes of Path to the Peak, as the deck really focuses on ability lock. Kind of having a way to draw some cards outside of that is really, really key. It still hits a relevant weakness with the future sets to come out. Gardevoir and Mew don't look like they're slowing down. It looks like they're speeding up, with Gardevoir getting an incredibly powerful new Stadium card, and Mew kind of like reverting back to DTE as there's so many more abilities. There's no good grass decks right now in the format. Ones we've seen revealed in Paradox Rift cards, they're not looking like they're going to have too much grass support here. So Charizard EX will potentially stay on top. And kind of like it's a very, very popular deck, so be prepared to see it in cups and challenges. You may see it in the odd regionals here and there, potentially if you're playing Shein Power, it's a good matchup with you, the Arceus, but the Gallade and the likes of the Lost Zone deck potentially becomes your Shein Power matchup becomes much greater because you have so much better draw factor and getting that boss's orders, getting rid of that Excalibur as early as possible. So potentially Charizard EX will become a much more of a meta refined deck. I think after the past few weekends, after the start of the 2024 season over to Hawaii, this is really refined version of exactly where we can see Charizard EX kind of go with it. Will we see the likes of Lost Box version come on top? Potentially. Could we go back to Arceus? I generally think not, with a huge amount of support that the likes of Path to Peak decks are really getting. But also we could see that really fun decks like the likes of the Gallade version. Really interesting, really unique approach. Could see the way of how Charizard EX is starting to evolve. So I hope you enjoyed this video and really kind of like give a bit more of an informative taste about where I think Charizard EX is placed. Just looking back at these lists here, I generally think this list here, which got top 4 in the Barcelona ESP, is really powerful and honestly potentially could be the way forward on how you play Charizard. I'm definitely wondering why I'm trusting this deck here because it looks incredibly interesting and unique and fun. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below, what Charizard EX build are you the most excited for? Which one do you want to try? Have I missed any archetypes here? I'd love to hash out in the comments below. And I really am intrigued to see how this poster child Charizard EX is going to slowly evolve as the meta kind of progresses. So I will see you guys in a couple of days for another video. Bye for now.